Shock. Loud funerals in the Kremlin. The Russian fleet is being scrapped for metal. NATO celebrates victory. Putin's main toy Russian aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, known as Kuzya among the people, is no longer the terror of the seas. Even the modernization of the existing modernization didn't help. The once mighty naval power is no more. The bloody dictator's ships are dragging him down with them. The US and China are rejoicing.
A loud funeral in the Kremlin. The ill-fated aircraft carrier Admiral Kuznetsov, which, according to Putin's plan, was supposed to become the terror of the seas and the flagship of the Kremlin's navy, has instead become one of its biggest laughingstocks.
The well-being and security of the entire country depend on how effective the cruiser's combat service will be.
Like country, like aircraft carrier, the Russian flagship of Project 114.5 was launched back in 1985. A vessel 300 meters long, over 70 meters wide, and with a displacement of 50,000 tons, was supposed to be Russia's answer to NATO's ever-expanding fleet. According to the design, the aircraft carrier could accommodate 26 MiGs up to 10 Su-33s, as well as 2,000 crew members. Kuzya, as the sailors themselves nicknamed the carrier, got a chance to show its full power in 2011. Its only combat mission was participation in the war in Syria.
All agencies and television channels around the world watched and continue to watch the Russian Navy squadron, which for the first time set out not on a training mission but on a combat deployment.
According to the Kremlin's plan, this was supposed to look truly majestic and intimidating. In reality, however, the whole world was indeed shaken. But not out of fear, rather by the appalling condition of Putin's fleet. At that time, the only aircraft carrier in the Russian army was also the only one in the world that, in the 21st century, continued to use extremely toxic and inefficient mazout as fuel.
It was the first long-range voyage in several years, and on top of that, the trail of black smoke behind the ship stretched for hundreds of meters. Some called the cruiser a smoker's aircraft carrier, others captioned photos of the smoking ship with sand firewood and compared it to an Icelandic volcano. People with opposing views wrote that the aircraft carrier had frightened the West and NATO.
The first combat deployment for poor Kuzya also turned out to be its last. After Syria, the Admiral Kuznetsov had to be towed back, and to avoid further trouble, it was sent off for repairs and modernization. But over the years, the aircraft carrier saw neither one nor the other.
Initially, the repairs were estimated at 20 billion rubles, but it's clear that this amount has increased significantly. During the repairs, there were several fires on board, in which 2 people died and 14 were injured. They had planned to return the aircraft carrier to service as early as 2022. Then those deadlines were postponed.
The more time passed, the more obvious it became that the Admiral Kuznetsov was unlikely to ever leave the docks. A series of fires during the repair work and the endless increase in the budget took their toll. The aircraft carrier spent so long in the docks that at some point the unfortunate Kuzya already needed a modernization of its existing modernization.
The repair and modernization of Russia's only aircraft carrier has been halted. The cruiser Admiral Kuznetsov went in for repairs in 2018 after a deployment to the Mediterranean Sea.
At this point, there's simply no sense in trying to do anything with it anymore. Putin never really had any luck with the Navy from the very beginning. He started with the Kursk, and it sank, right? He's finishing off by scrapping the Black Sea Fleet, the only aircraft-carrying cruiser. Well, what can you say? Good job?
Now Putin's main toy is facing decommissioning and scrapping. The Kremlin has neither the funds nor the capability to modernize this heap of scrap metal. Putin's maritime race has clearly been lost by the Russian Federation.
Well, after 8 years of repairs, I feel like I could have fixed that aircraft carrier with my bare hands, all by myself. I mean, I just don't get how you could fail to do it in 8 years. Although, I bet they siphoned off a ton of money there.
Turns out, no sabotage was even necessary. You just had to wait a little, and the only aircraft-carrying cruiser into whose repairs billions were poured will simply be scrapped for metal.
As a result, analysts say Putin has lost his last trump card at sea. Over a quarter century of bunker rule, the Russian Federation has transformed from a powerful maritime power into a quasi-state with a half-collapsed, outdated fleet. His ships are afraid to go beyond their distant bases and peacefully rot at anchor.
How many aircraft carriers does the US have? 11. And 2 more are under construction. China has 3, and another one is under construction. The UK has 2, and India has 2. Can you imagine? But Solovyov and Russia has 0. That's it. But Solovyov keeps telling stories about how he'll destroy everyone with Poseidon.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
The only thing left for Russian propaganda to be proud of these days is the sharp increase in scrap metal, which is exactly what the Admiral Kuznetsov will be turned into. And that's only if the decaying Kuzya doesn't sink on its way to the scrapyard.
The great maritime power of Russia is incapable of building its own aircraft carriers or even maintaining its old ones, unlike its main geopolitical rivals and sworn friends like the US and China. Once again, Russia is simply not capable of doing this.
An infernal alliance. Lavrov bowed down to Kim Jong-un. Russia and China have challenged the world. North Korean soldiers are already on their way. NATO is on edge. Missiles, artillery, and cannon fodder. China is arming Russia to the teeth. A meat grinder in exchange for oil and food. More shocking details coming up.
The alliance between Pyongyang and Moscow continues to grow stronger. The North Korean dictator will fight on Putin's side for as long as it takes. Kim Jong-un confirmed that the DPRK is ready to unconditionally support and encourage all measures taken by the Russian leadership to overcome the root causes of the Ukrainian crisis, in accordance with the spirit of the intergovernmental treaty between the DPRK and Russia. During a meeting with Russian Minister Lavrov in the North Korean coastal city of Wonsan, Kim Jong-un assured Putin's envoy that North Korea would continue and possibly even increase its contribution to the war against Ukraine.
North Korea is very interested in being useful to Putin and Russia because they receive money, they get food, they get military technologies, they get nuclear technologies, while Russia gets a more extensive military-industrial complex. Russia gets North Koreans as a labor resource. Russia gets North Koreans as mobilization resources.
As of today, Pyongyang is Moscow's key ally. Bloodthirsty outcasts have found each other. North Korea is the first and so far the only country to have officially sent thousands of its soldiers to the war against Ukraine.
I would like to specifically note the participation of servicemen from the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the liberation of the border regions of the Kursk region.
In addition to soldiers, Kim Jong-un is supplying Russia with ballistic missiles, artillery, and shells. The scale of ammunition deliveries is impressive. According to South Korean intelligence, during the war in Ukraine, North Korea has supplied Russia with 28,000 containers of weapons and artillery shells. According to South Korean military intelligence provided on Sunday, North Korea continues to supply Russia with artillery shells to support its war against Ukraine. The volume of deliveries amounts to more than 12 million 152mm shells. In other words, almost every second shell used by the occupying army on the front lines has been provided to the aggressor by the North Korean dictator. According to the head of Ukrainian military intelligence, North Korea is currently supplying Russia with up to 40% of the ammunition used in the war in Ukraine, as the partnership between Pyongyang and Moscow deepens. In addition to the ongoing flow of equipment and ammunition, North Korea is planning in the near future to significantly increase the number of its troops fighting on Russia's side against Ukraine by sending an additional 25,000 to 30,000 soldiers.
Previously, it was 11,000 and 5,000 to 7,000, which Shoigu requested for the restoration, or rather the so-called restoration, in the Kursk region. Now it's 30,000 soldiers. This number, at least nominally, is already reaching up to 50,000. And when it is already being communicated to the leaders of North Korea that the North Koreans will carry out the objectives set before them, essentially by the Russian army, and this is connected to Ukraine, on the one hand, yes, it does pose an additional threat, because 50,000 on a specific front, in addition to the Russian army, could create, let's say, quite serious problems for Ukraine.
The alliance between the DPRK and Russia is a dangerous challenge not only for Ukraine, but for the entire democratic world. After all, in addition to money, technology and food, the North Korean regime is gaining a battle-hardened, experienced army that, unlike its Asian neighbors, knows firsthand what modern warfare is.
That's all for now, and for more breaking news from the front, tune in to the next episode.